Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Today, we're talking with a gentleman who grew up the son of a milkman and became a millionaire by the age of 23. Eventually, he went on to interview 1,000 millionaires over a 3-year period. And today he's sharing what he learned and how it also brought about his creation, Givers University. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, the founder of BrandFace, where we help business stars differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was actually a client before I became a partner, and the BrandFace principles helped make my company so successful. I bought into the company to help other people do the same thing. We're the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe, and we do the Be Bold podcast to help people like yourself meet people like this gentleman and take the fear out of putting yourself out there.
Okay, well, we would like to welcome E.A. Csolkovits to the program. Welcome to Be Bold Branding, E.A.
Thank you so much for having me here. And Michael, I have to say that was amazing because, there's the proof. You can tell that people do successful things, that they emulate people who've done successful things. Because I remember hearing the Hair Club for Men said he was once a customer and now he owns a company. So, so there you go. So Michael just followed in his footsteps, and not with the hair thing, but obviously. Hopefully we won't have a hair-raising podcast. So thank you for having me here, and hope to share some great nuggets with your listeners.
Yes, and even if you don't, it's great comedic value.
That's right? We're going to have a good time.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And I always laugh at my own jokes. Always. I learned that a long time
that's
ago.
Part of the secret of being
I'm my own favorite laughing guy. I'm my best audience.
I love it.
I do too. All right. Hey, let's jump right in, EA. Tell
Awesome.
us what you learned from I'm sure you've had many mentors over your life, but the one specifically that helped you really sort of get started and changed your life and business direction.
Happy to. Thank you. First of all, my background was very humble. Like you mentioned, Tanya, son of a milkman, nothing unusual about that. And back then, milk came in glass containers. And, there was a box outside everyone's house that was called the milkman's box. And there was always, what was funny? There was always money in it. And no one ever touched the money. That was milkman money, right? Different times, right? Anyway, so during that, then at 16 years old, I became a janitor. And that really, there was 2 events that had a profound impact to answer your question, Michael. The first one was at 16, I was able to be bonded, which means insured, so that if my buffer while I was cleaning a place hit some piece of equipment, insurance company would pay for it, right? So that also allowed me to be in expensive places, and also it allowed me to be in expensive homes. And every Wednesday, I cleaned the home of a woman who's, when I mention her name, it won't mean anything to your listeners until I make the movie reference, then they'll get it. There was a movie out a couple of years back. It was called The Founder. It was about McDonald's. Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, right? All right. First of all, I lived in Oak Brook. I lived in that area. So in my whole lifetime, I witnessed that whole phenomenon, from the very beginning, just after, literally drove by the Des Plaines operation number 1, probably hundreds of times, literally. Actually, interestingly enough, on the way back from the milk route, I remember watching it change, 1 million burgers sold. Wow, that's crazy. So anyway, so I cleaned this lady's house, and in the movie, Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc. By the way, all Hollywood spin. Ray Kroc wasn't that way. It says in the beginning, based on a true story. It is. It's not the true story. It's based on one, So it's, so I can tell you, all Hollywood spin, but that's great. There were certain events that really happened. The whole time during the movie, Michael Keaton, Ray Kroc, is talking to a lady outside his office. He's saying, June this, June this, June this. Her name is June Martino. That's the lady whose house I cleaned every Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
When I met her, she had the 3rd most controlling stock in McDonald's. Interestingly enough, later on, she actually was the first woman to ever trade on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. She was an amazing lady. And I met her, obviously, in my teens, and she one day sort of took me under her wing, and we went in the kitchen. She told me the whole McDonald's story. And she told me about how Ray influenced her and really, she never used the word mentor, but that would have been the word she would have used. And I didn't know what mentor was. I didn't even know how to spell it. I think I spent my hooked on phonics money on something else anyway. So so here I'm not even knowing what a mentor was, but I thought to myself, man, if I could just find a Ray Kroc, if I could find someone like that, where would I find my Ray Kroc? And I learned later on that I inadvertently asked the right question, because life is not about answers; it's about questions and asking the right ones. The answers are always omnipresent, and so I inadvertently asked the right question. A couple months later, we got a phone call at the janitorial service, and I went out, and this guy was opening a diamond business, a store, I should say, and he wanted an estimate on some carpeting. I didn't sell him the carpeting, but he did offer me a job, and I started working for him. And little did I know at that point, later on he became the father I never had, even though I had a father. I became the son he never had, even though he had a son. And he was a puritanical genius, not the genius IQ, because I don't believe in that. I've met too many educated idiots in my life. All is book knowledge they spew at you, but zero execution and implementation skills. Zero, right? They just know the book stuff, right? So I call them educated idiots lovingly, but it's the truth, right? So, and he was just the opposite. He was a puritanical genius in an amazing way. And I'd like to share with you this man who became my mentor, Sam Robbins. Not only an amazing story about his background, but also it sort of gets into a little bit about one of the things he taught me that were so important, and that was how to discern the people we have around us in our life. Because, even today, both of you I know would agree that we have businesses opening and closing faster than ever before in history. We have products being antiquated overnight by brand new products that someone made in their basement or garage, right? Faster than ever before. What do we have left? The only thing we have left is our relationships. And there's nothing that will impact every part of our business life, our family life, and our social life more than our relationships. So he taught me how to discern and the many mistakes I made years and over the years, etc. But I'll share with you a story about really how amazing this guy was, because it's such a graphic story. He told me about he grew up in this thing called the Great Depression. And he told me that, back when he was growing up, there was no money anywhere. The people were jumping off of buildings because they'd lost all their fortunes, committing suicide. He said multi-mile long soup kitchens. They lines to get in soup kitchen, right? And he told me that for some of their meals, they actually ate cardboard.
Wow.
Right? Now, how's that for, that's just mind blowing, right? And and then he told me about the store he went by every day. He's telling me the whole story. He went by the store every day, and he looked, and there was only one guy, same guy in his store. So one day he just went in, and so I was talking with the guy, and it turns out he was the owner, and the whole store was filled with sewing machines collecting dust. And he said, and Sam, my business mentor, said, I guess no one's buying sewing machines. He said, no, they're not. No one has any money. They're trying to eat, let alone, they're not going to buy a sewing machine. And he said, they're all just collecting dust. And he said, in fact, I'm the only one here. I can't even afford employees. He just one man standing there, right? So my mentor said, now he was in his teens, late teens, and he said, do you mind if I help you sell some of these sewing machines? The guy says, well, sure. I mean, man, what do you have in mind? They're just collecting dust. He said, well, I'd like to propose that we sell them on payments. And we'll split the payments, and I'll guarantee the sewing machine. If we sell it and someone doesn't make good on the sewing machine, I'll guarantee the cost of the sewing machine, so you have no risk. He said, and we'll split. And the guy said, go for it, man. They're just collecting dust. Whatever you can do, just give it a shot. So then the next step was, my business mentor put together a flyer, and he posted it everywhere, of women to work from home. He could not respond to all of the people that were responding to this because everyone needed money. So if you were hiring in any way, they wanted to talk to you. He said he couldn't even respond to everyone. It was so incredible. And he formed this incredible community of women. And he actually, now here's where the real genius came in. He sold them a sewing machine that they could buy on payments. He provided them with the patterns. He provided them with the material. Then he guaranteed he would buy the clothing from them, thus guaranteeing their income so they could make the payments on a sewing machine. And then he sold that handmade clothing to stores at high quality, extremely discounted handmade clothing that stores could then sell at a huge discount 2 people. In 1 year's time, you got to remember, people are jumping off of buildings, multi-mile soup kitchen lines. In 1 year time, he earned $1 million.
Wow.
That's insane. What a
That is.
fantastic story.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And the amazing thing now, and by the way, that's $1 million back then.
Right.
Today it's well over 10 million, well over $10 million in today's dollars. And it was interesting that what he really did there is he looked at everyone's problem and solved it. He looked at the guy in the sewing machine starting, just collecting dust. I can move those for you, right? And then he knew women needed, families needed money. So he couldn't even respond to all the response from, here's a great way to make money, and set them up in their own little sewing machine business in their home, right? And then solve their problem with income, and then solve the problem for the stores, and solve the problem for customers to buy clothing at a deeply discounted rate that was high quality handmade. So and I share that story because of how incredible it was. And he shared with me the importance of that community of women, how those people were the real key to the whole thing, that was the driving force that made it work. And so when I was 19 years old, I asked him, I said, Sam, will you teach me everything? I mean, just don't hold back. Teach me it all. I want to know it. I don't even know what I don't know, right? And if you'll just teach it to me. He said, okay, I will. But I want one thing from you. I said, okay. He said, when the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many people as possible everything I teach you. So at 19 years old, I made an oath. I made a vow to a man that I think is still looking over my shoulder watching me. And that became what we know now as Givers University.
Oh,
that is
phenomenal.
Great.
Phenomenal.
And I got to tell you, not only is it an incredible story and awesome background, but it literally was the next question we were going to ask you.
Right.
Was
exactly.
Talk to us about Givers University. And you just slid right into it like a consummate professional, EA. Man alive.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. And even though there's a lot of kind words, it's still not as long as my last name. So I got to get working. Anyway, so here I am learning about communities, right? And I'd like to share with your listeners an observation that we at Givers University have begun to observe in the last couple of years. The word community, first of all, there's a lot of great communities. There's people who love dogs and help dogs. I'm a dog lover. And there's people who help children. There's many, many great organizations and communities doing great things. Mm-hmm. But also, there's been an emergency of other kinds of communities that aren't necessarily as great. And I can share with you how the word has morphed. I could use as a good example, many years ago, if I went to a meeting of 2 or 3 people, that meeting was actually called a diet, spelled D-I-E-T. I went to a diet. That was a meeting. And then later on, years later, if I got a monthly allowance or a weekly allowance, a stipend, that would be called a diet. I received a weekly diet, still spelled D-I-E-T. Then, as I was growing up, the word diet meant eating habits. It was the way you ate. Now you say diet, weight loss. Means weight loss, right? Spelled the same way, all of those years and years and years took on totally different meanings, right? Mm-hmm. I submit to you, the same thing is happening with the word community. There are many so-called communities today that I refer to as taker communities. They're not giver communities. See if this sounds familiar and for some of your listeners. You're cajoled, you're invited, you're talked to, join our community, be a part of our community, we're all in this together. And then as soon as you join, hours later, they're already selling you stuff, pitching you for this, and you go, God. And I've had it happen more than once. I think, this is not a community. Why are you doing a bait and switch on me? It's a customer list. Call it what it is. It's a prospect list. And then call it what it is. I may want to be on it if I like your products, but don't do the bait and switch on me. Don't say community, and then the whole thing is to pitch me. So a taker community has been formed, simply put, to make money off of you. That's why it's been formed, right? Now, 2 things that I would like to share. There were 2 great lessons. And by the way, all of this stuff that I share and the blessings I've had in my life, All of those were because I only had one superpower and only one. I had the ability to say the following: you know, I don't know about that. I'd love to learn. Could you please teach me? That was it. Where everyone else, and even today, everyone wants to be preeminent, and everyone wants to be the, and that there's no power there. There's no power there whatsoever, right? They're all struggling to be the one that looks the best, and it's backwards. It's half backwards. If you really want to learn, then we need to learn and make sure that we're discerning as to who we learn from, not people that are educated idiots, but people that have done it. They have done it, right? Those are the ones, right, that you want to. That's the difference between what I call a consultant and an insultant. An insultant hasn't done it yet, right?
Love that.
Another great nugget.
Yeah, so I want to hire an insultant. So there's two things my mentor shared with me that I would like to share with your listeners that I think will be very helpful. The first thing he said, and it's directly relatable to communities and Givers University. He said, and when I was a teenager, late teens actually at that point, he said, let me teach you about this thing called life. He said, I'll teach you how to make it work. I said, man, I don't know where to begin, so yeah, I'm all ears. He said, picture in your mind this scale. And in this scale, on the right-hand side is all the things you're going to receive and get through your entire life. He said, the left side scale are all the things you're going to give and contribute through your entire life. He said, this scale is amazing for the following reason. It's never out of balance. It strives for balance. And even if it seems at a moment, statically, that it's out of balance, it always will be in balance and balances itself. He said, so here's the way you do it. He said, what I'm going to share with you is going to be a little tough. In the beginning, it'll be tough. Later on, it won't. He said, forget about the receiving side. Forget about it. Totally forget about it. He said, and make it your job every day to heave so much on the giving side, because your new job is to try to get that scale out of balance because you've put so much on the giving side. And he said, and when you do that, you'll never have to worry about or be concerned what you're going to receive. And I can share with you that lesson has been so impactful on my life. And, you know, I was at a live event and one of the guest speakers, and this one lady says, you know what? She said, you know, I don't like to share all my stuff with people because I'm afraid they're gonna steal it. And I said, you're not gonna like what I'm gonna say. And I'm one of those. I'm one of those people that, you know, if I say something and you don't like it, that's on you. That's not on me. And I said, I'm one of those guys. So you're not gonna like what comes out of my mouth next, but I have to say it. I'm gonna say it. If you're concerned they're gonna steal your stuff, you don't have enough stuff.
Yeah.
You need to start learning.
True.
That's awesome.
They should never be able to make that well dry of what you can offer and make available to them. And if you're afraid from that, come from that place, you're losing. You're losing from the get-go, right?
Yes.
She didn't talk to me the rest of the event. Anyway, so but that's the way it was. Now the next thing, Michael and Tanya, was so extraordinary. This, even today, I'm blown away and astonished by the next event that took place. My business mentor had diabetes, an extreme case because of his eating habits, you know, as a child, right? Malnutrition to the extreme. And it did take his toll early in his life, unfortunately. But when he came to me one day and I had already worked my way in and we were equal partners and, you know, and we were splitting everything 50-50. And one day he walked into my office and he said, I would like to propose that we compete with each other. I said, what? He said, I would like to propose that we compete with each other. I said, all right, this should be interesting. And I'm looking in his eyes, and he had, you know, years ago, there was this old little show that was sort of real light. It was called The Monkees. And there was a guy on there, Davy Jones, that whenever he fell in love, his eyes would twinkle in the thing and his eyes would sparkle. My business mentor could do that. I swear he could. And I would look in his eyes and they would twinkle. I thought, oh boy, this is going to be really good. Whatever's going to happen. And he had that twinkle. I knew it was going to be good, right? And he said, this is what I propose, how we compete. He said, we're going to compete every year to see who can make the other one more money. And the loser has to buy the winner anything they ask for or want. And I said, wait, what? I said, let me make sure I understand this. Right? What you're proposing is that you and I are going to compete. And if you make me more money next year than I made you, right? That means that I lost and you won because you made me more money. And then you get to ask for anything you want and I have to buy it for you? He said, yep. And I said, okay, now I want to make sure I understand the whole thing. That also means, though, but if we compete and I make you more money than you made me, you lose and I get to ask for anything and you have to buy. He said, that's absolutely right. I'll never forget the big sigh on that one. I thought, okay, this is going to be really interesting. Michael and Tanya, the first year, he beat me so bad. It was brutal. I literally paid cash for a house for him in Florida.
Wow.
But I couldn't be mad. I couldn't be upset because I made the
Right.
money. He made me all that money. He made me more money than I made him, and I had the money, so I couldn't be mad. And and I thought to myself, man, I better get smart quick. This is gonna hurt, So I better get with this game fast. And the next year I did win, and he bought me an airplane. I became a commercial pilot then. The next year he bought me a limousine. The next year he bought me a second aircraft, and then we just started carrying it over. And a couple of years later, Michael and Tanya, it dawned on me what he had done. And I thought, oh man, this guy is more of a genius than I ever thought. Here's what he did. He knew, I'm in my 30s and that his health was deteriorating. And at some point he couldn't keep up. He just knew it. We both knew it. He knew he could not keep up to me schedule-wise and time-wise when I could put in. And that at some point I was going to be putting in more effort. He wanted me to win, so my mind wouldn't get screwed up. He wanted me to get that little thing every single year that he wasn't getting because we were equal partners on something, on the business, I should say. And he didn't want my mind to get go. I thought, what kind of man comes up with that? How extraordinary is that?
It is extraordinary.
It's that
diabolically through. Beautiful.
Yeah, really.
To think it through and to craft it and to forecast forward what's going to happen. And I thought, man, this is really something. So we refer to that story I just shared with you as the giver's contest intention. The giver's contest intention, because I'm going to refer to that in a few minutes. And I'm referring to my mentor coming to me with this contest, which even today, I'm astonished by. I've never heard anyone come up with a contest like that. Business partners and everything else, and yet the puritanical perfect partner would do that, right? I mean, it's the perfect thing.
Oh yeah. Well, tell us exactly what Givers University is, and because I'm assuming that was built upon the foundation of the very story you just told, and how can people benefit from that or take away from that specific business?
Excellent. Happy to do that. And I should share with your listeners, I never say anything in 10 minutes. If I can say it in 20. So, anyway, so at Givers University, first of all, we're an online educational forum, and all the things that my mentor taught me are in an educational format there called Give to Be Great. It's a series of 3 courses. The first course is called the Giver's Mindset. The second course is called the Giver's Lifestyle. And the third course is called the Giver's Lifelong Learning. They're actual courses. And also included in there, when I was blessed to be on the air on the radio, I interviewed 1,000 millionaires in 2 years' time. And what I was after was the commonalities. I was after those threads. Why these people, when even today, Michael and Tanya, even today, if you add together an average person's income of their whole life, it still doesn't equal $1 million. It's getting close because of inflation and everything, but still, it's still not there, right? So why these 1,000? And I was so I asked so many questions, and off the air was what I was really interested in, even more than that. And those common threads then got all filtered down and sifted into these courses, if you will, that we have. And as we share here today, I'm going to share with you and your listeners the importance of one of the most important parts of all of that is our discernment. We teach people how to discern. And I use the following scenario. First of all, I say to all of your listeners, we love everybody. I say that emphatically. We love everybody. And we teach people how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. Mm-hmm. And then make decisions on who we have around us, not on what they're saying, because our talk talks and our walk talks, but our walk talks louder than our talk talks. Mm-hmm. By the way, I practiced that right before I said it. Anyway, but we want to let people know that you can. And so when we say givers, we don't label a person as a giver. We're labeling giver deeds. When we say taker, we're not labeling a person as a taker. We're labeling taker deeds. So we teach people, look at them doing these things. Don't listen to their words. Observe, become aware, and watch what they do. And we even give them checklists. We have one that's called the 25 do's, 25 deeds. Watch them do these 25 things. And if they're doing these, you may want to bring them in closer. If they're doing these other 25, you may want to consider respectfully, not nasty or rude, respectfully begin to distance yourself, because when you bring them in, they're going to make you collateral damage. You're going to be stomping out fires not of your making, stress level through the roof, because no one taught you how to discern. How do you decide who should I bring in? So we teach discernment in relationships. And I can share with you, being blessed, I've done maybe 125 podcasts since last April. I'm doing a second round of 100 now, talking about, the givers' communities, if you will, and the difference. And I can share with you, no one's teaching discernment. No one's teaching how do you decide. This one guy said a few podcasts ago in an interview, "Oh, it's great. I just read a book, and he said you got to have 5 good people around you." I said, "You're right, you do." Question: which 5?
Mm-hmm.
And he went, I said, "You see, no one's teaching us which 5."
Right.
So we have broken it all the way down to a very granular level where you can no longer say, "How do I do it?" because there it is. Mm-hmm. And then from that, by teaching people this skill, it's a skill that can be learned.
It is a skill.
Their lives and productivity go through the roof because they've learned what should they be looking for with these people they should be bringing in their life, forming their own community around them. So may I talk a little bit about community and the givers community and how that relates and how we help people do that?
I would love it.
Absolutely.
And I want to actually prelude it, because you're really speaking our language, not just in BrandFace, but also in my real estate company. I know exactly what you're talking about. And for those young entrepreneurs out there that are trying to get started on that and needing to put faith in people around them to believe in the same ideal, and be a giver to the ideal, not a taker, I think this is perfect.
Sure is.
So yeah, go ahead. Tell us some more about how to look for those traits.
Thank you. Happy to do so. At Givers University, we actually use another term rather than a givers community. We call them givers juntos, and a junto basically is a group of people that have gotten together for a common purpose. Just that simple. Group of people got together for a common purpose, whatever that is, right? It's an interesting term, dates back to like the 1600s. It's a Spanish word, wasn't used too much until a guy by the name of Benjamin Franklin picked it up in the 1700s. And in 1727, Benjamin Franklin formed a group of 12 friends that he originally called the Mutual Improvement Club, later on called it the Junto, later on called it the Leather Apron Club. And what's interesting is they met every Friday, a couple of hours. They talked about politics, ethics, morals. I mean, the whole gamut. And what's interesting is that, do you know our very Declaration of Independence can be arguably traced back to those original conversations at the Ben Franklin Junto. So no one can tell me a Junto is not powerful when you get a dozen people together for the right reason.
Right.
Right? And so we teach 3 different kinds of junto. We actually help people form these. They can form their own. We want them to, and it's free. We want them to do it. Here's why. I know that scale, the giver scale of life, is true. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do everything we can at Givers University to get that scale out of balance. We're heaving it on there. And so one of the ways we do that is we teach people, we're going to teach you to form your own junto if you want. There's 3 different kinds, or we're going to connect you with one that already exists of someone else's. So let me touch on those 3 just for discussion purposes so that people know, right? These are the first is what we call a greater junto, the giver's greater junto. This can be any number of people worldwide. Good example might be maybe the Salvation Army or maybe the Lions Club. That would be a good example of a giver's greater junto. The next would be a giver's insider junto. 2 to 12 members, more intimate, closely knit. Good example, the Ben Franklin Leather Apron Club. That would be a good example. Then we have the giver's millionaire junto. This is a junto of 2 to 12 vetted millionaires who are all getting together for a common purpose. Good example of that, first of all, Sam and I had one, my mentor. Secondly, another good example was a millionaire junto put together by a guy by the name of Henry Ford. In 1915, Henry Ford put together a millionaire junto consisting of him, Thomas Edison, the inventor, Harvey Firestone of Firestone Tires, and John Burroughs, who was actually a writer and a poet. And also, interestingly enough, he was a federal bank examiner. So he must have been the money guy. Anyway, so that's how he is, federal bank examiner, right? So they actually named, Henry Ford named their group the Four Vagabonds. And which was sort of interesting, right? And it became so well known, they would even travel together, and people would try to hitch a ride on their travel arrangements, and then they started to go a little bit more private. And so those are the three different kinds of juntos, and we teach people because, and I'm sure both of you and many of your listeners are familiar with an excellent book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon does a great job, masterful job of explaining the mastermind. I know people that have attempted and have formed a mastermind group, and then in a couple of months they just sort of fizzle and dismantle and go away. And I've watched it over and over again. I think, man, what's the deal with this? I mean, this is so critical, so important. I know the impact because I lived it in my life. So why are these falling apart or dismantling? They all get together for the right reason, but it just doesn't stick. Why? And then we began to research why, what was happening, and that led us to, how do you do it? How do you form it? And how do you keep it? And what's the glue you need to have? So we put together an acronym that consists of 7 letters, and each one of those 7 letters consists of one of the 7 steps in forming a junto, to help people and walk them through step by step. This is what you do up front. This is what you do during. This is what you do once it's in place, so that it'll stay in place, right? And at a very granular level. So if I can touch on those 7 letters for you. It spells the word discern. Interestingly enough, that's what we teach, right? D-I-S-C-E-R-N. The first letter, D. Well, the first thing you do with a junto is you have to decide, who do you want, right? Well, how do you do that? How do you decide? Which 5, right? So we actually provide a absolutely free checklist of those 25 deeds, so that people can, in a checklist form, they look at, here's the checklist, right? Look for these things. And if there's 13 over on that side, then maybe they're being a little takerish, and maybe I wouldn't want them too close to coming in as a part of my junto, right? So from our perspective, we say they need to either be doing all 25 of these, or if they're working on a few of them, because there's a self-assessment part certainly built in all of this, that if there's a few parts they're working on, then they at least need to commit up front. These things are what we all commit to up front. Otherwise, if it doesn't work for you, no problem. God bless you. We love you. It's just not a good fit for you. See? So I call that an expectational agreement. This is what we expect up front of everyone, and that helps from the very beginning, having all the right pieces in place. So the first is D, decide. Next, I, invite. You want to invite those 12 people. How do you do that? We walk people through. This is what you say. This is how you walk them through step by step. The next S is seed. In other words, we teach them, go through expectationally up front. You need to agree to these things. Otherwise, we're not going to let you in. God bless you. It's just not going to be a fit for you. That's okay. No problem. Right? So with a giver's junto, we have what we call 3 pillars and the 1 intention. All right, this is where I make that reference again to the contest intention. Okay, so the 3 pillars are as follows. They need to agree with a giver's junto that we have helped put together. They need to agree to these 3 things. Number 1, they need to agree to living our credo, and that is give to be great. You can be great by giving and not taking. We've proven it. We know it. Number 2, our pledge. Our pledge is to help every giver's junto member lead a life of predictive, massive, and exceptional happiness, freedom, and greatness. And the third is our labor of love. Every junto should have a labor of love, something that's much bigger than them that they are working on. This coming fall of 2022, we're going to be launching a incredible world-changing program. Literally, our labor of love with the Givers Juntos will be to end hunger 1 zip code at a time. And we have an actual plan on how to do just that, step by step. And then plus the one intention. They have to agree up front to the giver's contest intention. And the giver's contest intention, the explanation I gave with my business mentor when he came to me, is that every member agrees up front to a fiduciary responsibility to give more to the other, assuming 12, more to the other 11 than they're getting back, and they're striving to do that. And there's an accountability that goes along with that too. If you're off the rails, we're going to talk about it. And if we're off the rails twice, then we need to part ways. God bless you. We love you. It's just not a good fit for you. No problem. No problem at all. Right? And you bring in someone else, right? So to have those things agreed upon upfront expectationally is critical. Everyone now knows what's expected. They all know. Also, by the way, it sets those parameters where now people can give freely because everyone, because of those vows and commitments, are more comfortable giving because they're not thinking, well, what if they take advantage of me? What if they, right? What if they take from me? That causes so many people to hold back because they're afraid of that, right? They have that fear. Well, we knock that fear out from the get-go, right? It's gone, right? We're all there, and we're all there to do exactly what my business mentor did with the contest, and that was to see who could earn the other one more money. And in our instance, we actually provide them with an agenda so that on an ongoing basis, because now we get into the next one, which is convene. That's the C in discern. Convene on a regular basis, weekly, might be bi-weekly, monthly, even quarterly, on a consistent basis. Need to convene. E, establish a name. Leather Apron Club, Four Vagabonds, right? Give a name, because when you give a name to the group, it adds a continuity and camaraderie to it that's so critical. And then R is rotate. Every time, because we're going to, if they're a giver's junto, we actually provide them with the agenda. This is what you cover. Here's the questions you ask everyone in the group, right? And that helps them have a structured program ongoing. Not just one time, because I found that unstructured part is what sort of has it sort of dissipate, right? They're not treating it seriously because it's not being treated seriously, right? So every meeting, there's a new person. The R is for rotate. There's a new chairperson that is a part of the group that sort of goes through, this is our agenda for this meeting, right? And the N is for numbers. Seed other juntos. You can be a part of a millionaire junto and an insider junto, but seed other juntos because we all benefit. The more people that are out there that are thinking this way, going into relationships this way, with the expectations up front, this is what's going to be expected, and we're going to monitor it. We all need to do this, and we all benefit when this happens this way in incredible ways. Because whenever two minds form together in a spirit of harmony, a third mind is formed. And great ideas and power comes from that. And I've seen it in my life. I've lived it in my life. And the blessings I've had is because of these things I was taught by people much smarter than me. All I became was a conduit. Because somewhere I felt I can do it. What? Anyway,
I love it. Oh my gosh. And I so wish we weren't running out of time, because maybe you'll grace us with your presence, and you can come back and can do it some more.
Yes,
I'd love to. It'd be great. My pleasure. My pleasure. Love to do it.
What a phenomenal story you have, supported by phenomenal stories, surrounded by phenomenal people. Such a pleasure to get to know you today, EA.
And I want to say, I got to say, EA, I agree wholeheartedly, 1000% with everything that you said today. And like Tanya said, really, we're limited on time, and I wish that was not the case, but it is everything that you said. I vouch for it in my life. Tanya will vouch for it in her life. And it's one to all of our listeners. I back it 1000%. And I just met this man 40 minutes ago. So it's 100% true. Yes.
Thank you so much. And you know what? I just pro bono. I'd love sometimes, if you ever wanted to, you mentioned you have a real estate firm. I'd love to do a half hour or a 45-minute thing for all your employees and say, hey, I'll do better if you all think this way. So, and I'd love to do it for free, just to come in and help if that was ever something I could help with, because my life is to get that scale out of balance.
That's going to happen. That's going to happen. I'm going to have you talk to all of them. That's so fantastic.
Absolutely. And maybe even our BrandFace folks too.
I really like the idea of that. I really like the idea of that. So.
Absolutely. So let's, can you share with people how they can reach you if they have questions or just want to learn more about Givers University?
Yes, I can. Oh, you want to know where? Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought you were just
Please
asking me
swear.
if I could, and I said, yeah, I could share. Okay. So the
Maybe I should.
I said, yeah, I could share.
Between
I could
can
do
I
that,
and
yeah.
may I?
I just all right. It's they actually it's real simple. They go to our website giversuniversity.com. It's plural, giversuniversity.com. Couple ways to get info there. One, they can sign up for our newsletter. It's absolutely free. We don't spam people. They're going to get an email right away. Do you want to talk with these people? They have to say yes, and then they're going to get a download right in minutes afterwards. And that download is free, and it's called The 6 Arrows That Takers Shoot at Givers. It's a great little, quick little download. A couple days later, they're going to get another one, and that's the 25 do's I talked about, which are really, really critical. That list of these are the 25 things you observe. We want them to have it, and then every Thursday after, they get a short email. We call it the Giver's Toolbox. Every single week, we give them a new relationship tool that they can add into their toolbox. And also we're putting 2-minute little video clips on there. Every single week we're giving everyone a new step. Here's the next step in forming your own Junto. Do this. Here's the next step in forming your own Junto. Do this. So 2-minute clip, just that simple, right? So they can get a newsletter, and it's free, and it's every Thursday. We don't spam. I hate that. You sign up for something and 6 emails a day, unsubscribe. That thing. I just hate that thing, right? So and then also they could also go to the hamburger on the website, upper right hand corner, and then click on that, and they'll see a tab that says Givers Junto. Go to that page. And if they want to form their own Junto, one of those 3, they could be a chapter founder and request more info, and we'll connect with them and help them do it. We don't charge for any of this. We want to do this. It's in our hearts. And if they want to connect with another member or another membership or another Junto, we'll connect them as well. So they just sort of click what they're interested in, put their name. We'll have someone contact them and say, okay, here's what you do, and we'll walk you through it if you want to set one up yourself. And it's such a blessing to be able to do this, and the feedback. And I can only guess that I had to know it was the right time because Sam was looking over my shoulder telling me now's the time.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
The only explanation I can give you.
So true. So
That's
true.
good.
And what a beautiful note to end on.
For sure.
Gosh, thank you, EA. We've been so proud to have you. And hey, if
Thank
you
you.
guys love this story as much as we do, we encourage you to like it, love it, share it, and ding, subscribe, right? So you can be the first to hear great stories like this.
Yep. Guys, the reason that we do Be Bold Branding, the reason that we do what we do is for prosperity. And when we say prosperity, we're not just talking about money. We're definitely talking about the full 360 of an abundant life that we truly wish for every one of you. We know at BrandFace that prosperity favors the bold. So we always say be bold, folks, especially with your brand. And thank you, Mr. EA. And thank you, Ms. Tanya.
Thank you so much. God bless. And don't just have a good day. Have your best day ever.
Love it, EA. Love it. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on Be Bold Brand.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.